we all have uninterrupted entertainment this evening. Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to you all on behalf of the President of Vasant Vihar Club, General Shankar Prasad, members of his Managing Committee, and the Club Committee. As part of Vasant Vihar's 25th anniversary celebrations, a wide range of events and activities are taking place, both here at Kalyan Kendra as well as at the club. Be it music, dance, drama, sports, or discussion, there is something interesting for everyone. So I hope you all partake in all these different activities which have been organized. This evening, we have gathered to debate and discuss a rather thought-provoking and topical question. The question this evening is, should capital punishment be abolished in India? I'll repeat, should capital punishment be abolished in India? We have a cross-section of residents, both young and young at heart, ready to express their point of view on this topic. Justice R.S. Sodhi, who we have amidst us, has kindly agreed to adjudicate the debate. Thank you, sir, for that. We have 8 speakers. This is the format for the debate. We have 8 speakers, 4 arguing against the motion and 4 for the motion. Each debater will have a maximum of 5 minutes within which to present their argument. We will press the buzzer once at 3 minutes, twice after the 4th minute, and a long buzzer at the end of 5 minutes. No additional time will be given after that. So the participants, I hope you can stick to the 5-minute deadline. We will begin the debate with the first speaker arguing for the motion, followed by a speaker arguing against the motion. In this manner, the participants will take turns until each of the speakers have presented their arguments. Once all the speakers have had their say, we have 2 special speakers, Mr. Anil Gupta and Mr. Kailash Vasudev, who are going to express their view on the matter after the discussion, after the participants have finished with their argument. I would now like to introduce the participants for the evening, and I would like to invite them to come and join us on the stage. Speaking for the motion is General S.P. Murgai. General, could we ask you to come and take a seat here? General S.P. Murgai, does he need any introduction considering his constant endeavors for the community? He is the Vice President of the Society and an Honorary Secretary of the Vasant Vihar Club, recipient of the Ati Vishesh Seva Medal for his services. Could we have a round of applause for him, please? Our next speaker against the motion is Mr. R.C. Vaish. He is a retired IAS officer of Bihar cadre and an alumni of Stephens College and Delhi School of Economics. Could we have a round of applause, sir? Next, we have a young contestant, Aditya Bharadwaj. A round of applause for him, ladies and gentlemen. He's our youngest debater at 16 years old, a class 11 student of DPS R.K. Puram. He is a national level swimmer and a very keen debater. Speaking against the motion, we have Anurag Sundar. I think he's stuck in, oh, is he here? Okay, he's going to join us shortly. He's stuck in traffic outside. I'll introduce Mr. Sundar once he's here. Speaking for the motion, we have Etienne Fontaine, a French journalist with AFP who has been a resident of India for the last 2 years. He writes on matters concerning India. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Next, speaking against the motion, Mr. Rajat Hooja, who is an information system graduate from Connecticut. He describes himself as first-generation American with Indian family roots deeply embedded in Vasant Vihar. Speaking for the motion, Ms. Shreya Meni, who is an advocate practicing at the Supreme Court. She previously worked with Amar Chand Mangal Das and studied at the National Law School, Gujarat, and at Oxford University. Speaking against the motion, we have Mr. Suresh Goyal, the president of Vasant Vihar RWA. He is an author, a publisher, and a social activist. Come on, a bit more energy, ladies and gentlemen. He's the president of the RWA. Mr. Anurag Sundar, speaking against the motion. Nice to have you amidst us. He's a long-life consultant advising technology companies, education and financial institutions, an amateur shooter, and a budding musician. Here we have our 8 contestants. Can we have a round of applause so that they get encouraged and we have an entertaining evening? Justice Sodhi, our esteemed adjudicator, is a well-known public figure, especially given his involvement in several high-profile cases such as Jessica Lal, Naina Sani, and Priyadarshini Mattu, to mention a few. With a law degree from Punjab University, he practiced constitutional, civil, criminal, land revenue, and excise matters in the Supreme Court of India for almost 25 years. He was appointed a judge of the Delhi High Court in July 1999. Justice Sodhi, may I request? Already. Thank you very much for joining us here. Now to get the ball rolling. The topic for this evening's debate is, should capital punishment be abolished in India? Arguing for the motion, let me hand the mic over to General Murgai. General.
Well, Indians have long been ambivalent about the death penalty. It is for this reason very few executions have taken place since independence. To quote specifically, only 57 executions have taken place within these last 68 years. As per the recent data released by the Law Commission, 437 mercy petitions were filed with the president successively, and only in the cases of 306, the death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Now, these figures suggest a death row convict, his fate in the matter of life and death does not only depend on the ideology and views, philosophy of the government of the day, but also very specifically on the personal views and belief system of the president in office. Most of the countries in the world have already abolished death sentence. Only 36 countries have not. India is one of them, and the other exceptions are United States, South Korea, and Japan. The death penalty at the very outset violates the human rights and human dignity. It is barbaric, regressive. It's a legacy which is being carried forward from the days when we lived in tribes where killing was avenged by several other killings. In my opinion, death penalty is a legally condoned murder, which is both oxymoronic and inhuman. The United Nations General Assembly has already endorsed a worldwide moratorium on death penalty. We live in the land of Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi said, God alone can take our life because he is alone who gives us the life. It is time that India should learn from him and do away with the death penalty. The whole process, as you look at it, leading to death penalty, it is subjective, arbitrary, and judge-centric. There is no principled methodology to remove arbitrariness, public opinion, media trials, will of the ruling party in government, and not the least, the personal perspective of the judge play a very vital role in decision making. Lack of resources, over-delayed police force, they are some of the contributory factors in misapplication. The law is heavily loaded against the socially and economically backward and religious minorities. Death penalty, as it is generally believed, is a deterrent. Well, according to the recent United Nations Assembly resolution, there is no conclusive evidence of the deterrent value of the death penalty. It is also said that the death penalty should be given as a deterrent to the terrorists. Well, it has been proved very conclusively that death penalty, even for terrorists, is both ineffective and counterproductive. We turn the criminals into martyrs, influencing many other misguided youngsters to espouse a similar cause when we give punishment to the terrorists. Our legal system in itself suffers from inherent weaknesses. Death penalty is awarded based on majority opinion of the bench rather than the unanimous judgment. Unlike prison sentence, the death penalty is irreversible and irreparable. The accused should be given full opportunity to reform, and it is only possible if the convict is made to live. The death penalty makes it impossible to remedy any such mistakes. Lifelong imprisonment till natural death without bail and parole is much more painful and effective. As far back as 1973, the United Kingdom observed that executing terrorists had the opposite effect. In fact, it increased the incidence of terrorism. We talk about rarest of rare cases in Indian Penal Code. It is either death sentence or it is life imprisonment, and it is said that the life... Well, the bell is disturbing me. I think someone could control the bell, but nevertheless. Mr. Justice A.P. Shah, he has submitted his Law Commission report, and they have very strongly recommended abolition of death penalty, of being deterrent, sentencing. Ladies and gentlemen, we could speak on this, but then time is always at a premium. That's my view, that death penalty should be abolished at all cost.
Thank you very much, General Murgai, for your insight into the matter. Could I now request Mr. R.C. Vesh to come and express his view, which is against the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, fellow panelists, members of the opposite side, and members of the audience. I will start by opposing what my worthy opponent said, that people are advising to avoid death penalty. They do not take into consideration the chaotic condition that's prevailing in India. The crime figures show that more and more heinous crimes are being committed. I will not bore you with the crime figures, but I feel that if the situation is not controlled, the society will be in chaos. Therefore, capital punishment is to control such a chaotic condition. Here it may be mentioned that life is the most precious to an individual, and therefore capital punishment is a deterrent punishment to criminals. And under the law, many of the laws state that life imprisonment or capital punishment. And this life imprisonment may be not for life, unless specified by the judge, because it can be for 12 years. So in that condition, after 12 years, there's a hardened criminal let off on the road to commit more heinous crimes. I have more to say on my worthy opponent's remarks, because there are certain procedural difficulties. If you take the figures, our Honorable President has been disposing of mercy petitions in large numbers. So one should take the pendency of the divisional cases, and the mercy petitions pending with the Honorable President of India. Further, I'll have to say that many of the laws in India that impose imprisonment of life also attract the death penalty. And in rarest of rare cases, the Honorable Judge says capital punishment. This is recorded in his judgment. I think it is necessary to have capital punishment. I would like to talk about Kasab. Everybody knows the case, how long it took, and how many crores of rupees we spent on him. And I will not like to quote how much we spent. And ultimately, his mercy appeal was turned down. So there is some defect in the law, in the sense certain time limits should be prescribed for revision, for mercy appeals, and it is the fault of the law that such a large number of appeals are pending. Further, I'd like to say a small thing. The age of juveniles is being decreased from 17 to 16. I would like to quote the Nirbhay case, where a juvenile committed the same crime as his fellow criminals, and he was given 3 years. Why not capital punishment? Because the condition I've seen in remand homes is so bad that they're overcrowded, and these juveniles will turn into absolute criminals when they come out, because like in Nirbhay case, I think he was awarded 3 years. So therefore, I wholeheartedly oppose the motion that punishment in India, capital punishment in India, should remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vesh. Now, could I request Adit to share his point of view with us? And I hope with a bit more energy we can welcome him. So could we have a nice round of applause for this young man? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The motion tabled before this House is, should capital punishment be abolished? And I stand firmly behind this statement for various reasons. The first being what I believe to be the supremacy of the reformative theory of punishment over the retributive theory of capital punishment. Now, when we look at theories of justice and punishment, a rather obvious pattern emerges. The earliest theories were those of deterrence and retribution. Now, what both of these theories have in common is that both are dependent wholly on inherently harsh punishment against offenders and rely by definition on vengeance. They assume the criminal to derive mental satisfaction from crime. And thus, instead of focusing on social welfare and individual upliftment, they seek to derive solace for the victim through reprising the perpetrator. Now, that doesn't seem to be a very sound chain of thought in any sphere of life, if you come to think of it. Why? Because an eye for an eye and the world would be blind, as the father of our nation said. Now, the reformative theory, on the other hand, is the most recent and propagates individual reformation of offenders. Consequently, it is hailed in modern times as a representation of modern society and moves with the global shift in jurisprudence in rejecting capital punishment. Now, the second very simple argument is much less theoretical and far simpler to support. It is cheaper to imprison for life than to execute. Globally, not just in India, the cost of keeping a convict in prison for the remainder of their lives, however long that may be, is less than the cost of putting them to death. The processes of appeals, arguments, investigation, and set procedure add exponentially to the time and cost behind the execution process. Now, data made available by Amnesty International and the Death Penalty Information Center, a United States NGO that operates globally, puts average expenditure on a non-death penalty case at approximately $740,000 per case. And that in a death penalty case, to at least $1.26 million. Wherever you are in the world, that's 67% more expensive on average. Okay, so far, we've established that capital punishment is morally regressive as well as heavier on taxpayers' wallets. But for puritanical arguments, these points are refutable to some extent. What will be harder to deny is that capital punishment in all its history has never shown any apparent results in terms of lowering crime rates, which is what the judicial system aims at. Let us take the example of the United States, a country whose constitution from which we've borrowed a lot of provisions of our own. And it's a country that has always set a lot of store by the death penalty. There's not a single state in the United States carrying the death penalty that has a murder rate or even a crime rate lower than that of a state not carrying the death penalty. In fact, crime rates are between 7 and 22% higher everywhere, invariably. All right, let's leave the overseas alone now. In India, the Law Commission passed a report just weeks ago saying that, and I quote, "The Commission feels that the time has come for India to move towards abolition of death penalty." This is in direct opposition to the stand they took in 1967, which can only mean that India has come around and is moving in the direction it believes is forward. Now, nowadays, capital punishment is recommended only in the rarest of rare cases, as my predecessors pointed out. And these cases include terrorism, murder, rape, kidnap and ransom, and so on. In closing, I would like to say that capital punishment is an act that results in a citizen losing their life to the government, and as such should be treated with such gravity. Thus, capital punishment cannot remain a mainstay of legal procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Adit. Now could we have Mr. Anurag? Thank you. Speaking against the motion.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving us your attention and time. I'm grateful that over 200 members of this club thought it worthwhile to join us for this debate. Before I begin, a quick pop poll. How many of us believe that capital punishment should be abolished? A show of hands. So, yeah, so I think they are yet to do a better job of this, General Sahab. So, please muscle up a little more. Yeah, I heard you, sir. I will take about 4 minutes of your time, and to put it out straight, I am not a lawyer. I will not confuse you with sections, subsections, and get into the legal complexities of this, but I will give you 4 arguments, and we will do one simple exercise at the end of it to make my point. First, death penalty as a deterrent or fear of death. The first recorded death penalty is in 17th century BC, which means it has been used as a tool of statecraft for a very, very long time. Some of our peers from the other side said how 137 countries have abolished it, but they choose to forget that those very countries, especially from Europe, used to practice it the maximum. Henry VIII had the record of executing maximum number of people, and he also had a period in his reign which was called the Bloody Reign. 220 crimes were rated for execution of people in his reign. So it has been there for a long time. My point is that if our justice system can be made swift and severe, we could make the laws to make the death penalty faster, thus saving thousands of lives of potential victims. We have one known criminal against hundreds or thousands of potential victims. Make your choice. Second, removal of threat to society. Saddam Hussein was tried by a tribunal in 2005. However, it was not as simple as that. Even before his trial began, one of his tribunal judges was murdered. It's not an isolated case. Pablo Escobar was having his full reign over his crime in the country even when he was behind bars. And for him to escape from jail was not very difficult. The point is, some of the criminals are so hardened and so intensely powerful that putting them behind jails is not just enough. They have to be removed so as to ensure that the society can live on peacefully, because putting them behind bars is not a solution good enough. Third, closure for victims. Criminal willingly inflicts the pain of depriving a family of a loved one. Through their grief begins with the murder. It need not necessarily end with the murderer's execution. The feeling of retribution is not new age. It has been there even in our Indian mythology for a very long time. And there are stories of our Hindu gods who we bow before because they went out and revenged what has been put out as justice. So this does bring closure to the cause of pain which an innocent undergoes. Fourth point, responsibility and accountability. You, me, most of us are held accountable in our day-to-day lives. I'm held accountable in my job as a consultant by my clients, by my supervisors. A mother is held accountable for the quality of the food by her child. Society holds us accountable for various acts and activities. As per Indian Constitution, capital punishment is awarded in the rarest of the rare cases. So when an individual chooses to walk this path, he is fully conscious of the consequences of his actions. So when you and I are held accountable for our actions, why should an adult who has willfully committed an act of murder should not be held accountable? My last point, ma'am, and I'll just take about 30 seconds. I will ask everyone here to just close their eyes for not more than 30 seconds. Please just help me with this small exercise. I'm not so good looking that you have to stare at me. Just 30 seconds. Please close your eyes. Just imagine in front of you lots of people, about say 1,000 odd people, in front of which are standing about 200 to 300 girls, school-going girls in the age group of maybe your grandchildren or your children. It's a large, happy family group with doting parents, loving children, smiling, cheerful, happy atmosphere. All of a sudden, these children are crying. Most of them are dead. These girls, who are teenage girls, have been raped, amputated, killed, used for sex trade, used for sex slavery. Not very far, just about last year in Africa, Boko Haram. The point is not that they were unfortunate victims. The point is that this was not the first, but the second episode, because the first 300 girls, when they were kidnapped and they were tortured, someone felt that those kidnappers should not be punished. And they had the guts to commit the same crime again. And these girls had to undergo this pain. So please look into the eyes of these girls while you still close your eyes. Feel the pain that they have undergone. Feel the pain that their mothers have undergone. And if you still think that capital punishment should be abolished, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very, very strong point of view here. Could I now request Etienne Fontaine to share his views with us? Thank you.
Thank you. Dear members of Vasant Vihar Club, thanks very much for inviting me to this debate. That's a great honor. First, I would like to remind you that capital punishment has been abolished in France in 1981. As a French citizen, I would like to start my arguments by quoting Victor Hugo, one of the most famous French novelists who lived during the 19th century. Hugo was deeply and strongly against the death penalty. Hear what he said during a speech against capital punishment. You want to make an example. Why? Because it gives a lesson, it teaches people. Which lesson do you want to give? That you must not kill. And how do you teach that? By killing. So I deeply share the conviction, this idea, that you can't give the lesson not to kill by killing. More generally, I think that death penalty does not deter crime. This claim has been discredited by many studies, there is no evidence that the death penalty is any more effective in reducing crime than imprisonment. To be specific on the Indian situation, I think that India, as the biggest democracy in the world, has a leading role to play. About 160 countries have abolished the death penalty, and by joining this camp, India would give a clear sign that capital punishment is no more an answer to crime. I'm aware that United States and Japan still have the death penalty, but we see that in the US, more and more states decide to suspend the executions or have difficulties when it comes to kill the convicted. I really feel that India has not its place in a camp where you find such countries as Iran, Iraq, or China, the top 3 executing countries, where legal systems are unfair. I feel that death penalty does not give any relief to anybody. For example, Yaqub Menon, convicted for the 1993 bombings, was executed in July this year, 22 years after the attack. For the families of the victim, it does not give back the life to the relatives. And since 1993, Mumbai has suffered a lot of other bomb attacks. And I feel that countries can be proud when they manage to keep their most dangerous criminals alive without taking any risk of a repetition of the crimes. So I would like to finish by saying that the fact that people who are poor or belong to minorities are more likely to be sentenced to death simply because of discrimination in the justice system and because they have less access to good lawyers to defend themselves. So I think that death penalty should be abolished in India. It would give a strong signal to the rest of the world. I feel that death penalty does not deter crime, and finally, that mistakes can happen with the risk of executing an innocent person. Thank you.
A special thanks to you for sticking to the time limit. Our next speaker against the motion is Mr. Rajat Hooja.
Laws must be enforced. Breaking the law is a psychological defect, a means of rebellion. The criminal psyche is such that breaking the law brings that particular person internal warmth and happiness. It is a conscious awareness, knowing that he or she is purposely disobeying the rules set forth, hurting others, and getting away with it. Psychopaths enjoy and live for the moments in time when a non-authority calls them out on their infraction while continuing to break the law. The death penalty puts an end to that kind of behavior permanently. Nobody deserves to waste their time and torture him or herself by attempting to rehabilitate a person whom cannot or does not want to be. The environment is like an operating system of a computer, and the criminal is a program, a virus. It is specifically designed to accomplish a malicious and illegal task. An already compiled program cannot be rectified. It has a determined set of instructions. The clear solution is to delete the virus from the operating system entirely. Death. There are those who say capital punishment is a human rights violation. Human rights? The entire premise of jail, prison, confinement is dehumanization, discomfort, and torture of the subject. The motivating factor of imprisonment's design is sensory deprivation. So who is actually the human rights violator? Pro or con? With capital punishment, there is no human rights violation because there is no life to torture. Maintaining prisons is costly and a waste of time. The criminal's psyche is sick and demented, thriving and feeding off of the pain and suffering of its victims. A prisoner is more than happy to know that they are tormenting their captors day in and day out. In fact, in their mind, that adds to the value of the crime committed. To the deviant, it is like killing two birds with one stone. First, their victim is suffering. And second, society and the justice system is burdened by spending money, time, and energy on keeping the criminal alive. Not killing the criminal is, in essence, surrendering to their game and letting them win. The death penalty diminishes the capacity of the criminal to haunt and trouble the victim once the crime has been committed. Without a death penalty, the perpetrator goes on living, carrying the risk of causing more damage to the victims, increasing their suffering, and carrying the risk of creating more victims. The life of crime is a game to criminals, and executing them makes their capture and defeat all the more punishing. It also motivates those who may have some form of attachment to the deviants to dissuade or prevent the culprits from playing the game in the first place. The punishment must fit the crime, and nobody ought to be permitted to revel in the madness of his or her victim's suffering. Capital punishment, also known as the death penalty, is both a deterrent and alleviates the society from the burden of the perpetrator, creating further distress for the victim. Killing the criminal also ensures that the violator, somebody so sick and twisted, cannot harm again. That risk is completely eliminated, thus increasing the safety, security, and happiness of the environment. Without capital punishment, criminals may enable their victims to continuously relive their bad memories, like a bad movie being played on repeat. Death.
Thank you very much. That's a new thought, virus as criminals or criminals as virus. Speaking for the motion, we have Shreya Meni. Thank you.
So Charles Dickens, in his famous book, Oliver Twist, remarked, "What a fine thing capital punishment is. Dead men never repent. Dead men never bring awkward stories to light. The prospect of the gallows to them makes them hardy and bold." A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a privilege and pleasure for me to speak before you all. I am a lawyer, but I'm not going to bore you with any subsections, sections, or the act or the statute, trust me. As you might have figured, I speak for the motion. Yes, capital punishment should be abolished in India. Just a tiny disclaimer also before I start. Legal systems do not work on sentiments and emotions, and as much as we may imagine the trauma and pain of a number of victims, we still have to realize all the arguments that I put forth before you in a system, in a process where we have to appreciate legal arguments. Firstly, there is no such thing as legitimate hanging or legal murder. A killing or a murder is still a murder. It's only legal through the eyes of a murderer. Additionally, the state is not God. It has not the right to take away what it cannot grant or restore when it wants to, and here I talk of human life. Is man trying to become God then? Because in my humble opinion, capital punishment does exactly that. Avenge killing by hanging the accused, calling it legitimate and well-deserved a punishment. I don't think, as my learned friend mentioned, an eye for an eye would possibly devoid the world of blindness. Saying that the society must exact vengeance for the millions killed and the millions accused of, and must punish, is wrong on both counts. For vengeance comes from an individual and punishment from God, at least to the extent of taking and giving lives. Secondly, the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 65 of 2006 categorically said that there is no conclusive evidence of the deterrent value of death penalty. This has also been supported by various studies conducted by the National Law University, Delhi, and even the Law Commission of India report on the 28th of August 2015 mentioned the same. So then if it's not deterrence, then is retribution a cogent justification for retaining such an obsolete and barbaric practice in India? To my knowledge, the travaux préparatoires of the Indian Penal Code make multiple approach theory and reformative theory, calling for the reformation of the criminals, the best of the guidelines to tread on when elucidating the plausible objectives of punishment under the IPC. To add to that, as my friends mentioned, death penalty in states have lower crime rates, where they have lower crime rates and murder rates in the absence of death penalty. That's surprising, isn't it? Thirdly, the basis upon which death penalty is adjudicated hinges on the rarest of rare doctrine, which was laid down by the Supreme Court in Bachchan Singh versus State of Punjab. The judges unabashedly admitted themselves in the very same judgment that capital punishment in India continued to remain excessive, arbitrary, and unprincipled, moreover, judge-centric. I now ask all of you, much senior to me in experience and age, is it correct to hang a man based on a legal fiction doctrine called rarest of rare without having a strict scientific criteria laid down in black and white as to what should amount to the rarest of rare? After all, it's a human life that we are taking away. A wrongful execution of an innocent person is an injustice that can never be rectified, and hence capital punishment as a tool of punishment inherently carries within itself the risk of putting innocent lives at stake, which is a risk that I as a lawyer am not morally or legally willing to take. 68% of the death penalties, as my friend mentioned, has been reversed in appeal, and this is the numbers talking, not us. Fourthly, I must admit, being a part of this legal system, that the investigation of the crime, conducting the entire trial, going to the High Court, Supreme Court, filing a mercy petition, curative petition, and finally the President's province of pardon, spans about 20 years at least. Sadly, the accused already dies several deaths before he's actually put to the gallows. Hence, the benefit of doubt must be given to the accused and not the state, for due to the state's laxities and incompetence, the process of law is being grossly abused. Additionally, poor quality of defense counsels often lead many to death. There was one Ram Jethmalani for one Kasab. What about the thousands of other Kasabs rotting in the prison, waiting their death day to be executed in the gallows? Lastly, more than 150 nations have abolished capital punishment. The Rome Statute for the International Criminal Court that prosecutes people for the most heinous of all crimes, genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, does not prescribe for capital punishment. All it prescribes for is life imprisonment or sentencing, life sentencing without parole. I'm just going to take a second to complete. In India, vying for a permanent seat for the United Nations Security Council, we could lose out because of such regressive laws if they are not abolished. Portugal, with great difficulty, agreed to extradite Abu Salem to India for one reason: prevalence of death penalty. Countries all over the globe are moving towards an absolute abolition of capital punishment, the most premeditated of state-sponsored murders, and it's about time India does too. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. India's seat at the UN, I think we need to have we could have a different debate for that topic altogether. Now, could I request Suresh Goyalji to speak against the motion? Thank you.
Respected Justice Sodhi and my dear fellow Vasant residents. Like many others, I've been trying to understand why there's so much noise in the media and the public domain. Neither am I a lawyer who knows the various acts of laws, nor am I a politician who can fight for any party. I am just a law-abiding citizen and aspire for safe, secure, and terror-free India for the coming generations. To hang or not to hang? This debate was sparked after the Yaqub Menon's case. Few sections of the media and religious groups, few politicians and human rights groups have been raising a lot of hue and cry, casting aspersions on the judiciary, investigating agencies, and highest political authorities involving Yaqub's case on various issues. Sir, this is a special case where we say hang or not to hang. In my opinion, death penalty should be retained. According to the death penalty worldwide, India executed, since 2004, only 3 executions were there and 2 in the recent past. It means our judiciary system is well established and they take care of the laws and the needs of the criminals also. Sir, unfortunately, sometimes we are left with the standard innovation section of self-claimed intelligentsia who keep inventing, creating forums for various debates, destabilizing the Indian institutions. It is very easy to say yes or no, but see the comments of Mr. Ovasi, chief of MIM, on this death penalty, and see the comments of his brother, what he said about the, I'll not say the caste, but how about he said about this? It is easy to compare the people who have suffered. If you go back, say a few years back, say 70s, you must be remembering the Rangabilla case in Delhi. What has happened? Still, the father is a resident of Vasant Vihar, and if you talk to him, you will see the sorrow in his eyes. That infamous case of Rangabilla. And what about the other blast, Sojinagar blast? In Sojinagar blast, if you still remember, Vasant Vihar is one of our resident was killed, blasted. Even in the High Court blast. Now see the condition of the son and the brother, where they are also standing in the queue when the blast occurred there. Tandoor Khan, I appreciate Justice Sodhi's many of the cases. Sir, even now, even few days back, Neelam Katara has demanded that death penalty should be awarded to the murderer of the famous Katara case. Every family members of the, say, Mattu, Jessica Lal, they all. Why we are saying they should not be there? This is India where appeal and appeal and appeal at different levels goes on. And court at early morning again decides for the death penalty. What more justice one needs? You're talking about justice, you're talking about different things. I'll suggest differently, that a different way which is not in the law. My suggestion is that as soon as SC decides on the punishment, the culprit should be shot in the jail immediately. No mercy petition should be there. Again and again, delaying the process. Thank you, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you, Sureshji, for your view on the matter.
I would like to rebut about Yaqub Menon, because otherwise the debate will not be complete. Yaqub Menon is wrongly quoted.
Then I'll also...
I think, no. Could I request Mr. Anil Gupta to please come on stage and express his point of view on this topic?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am not part of the debate, but I am here to express my views, which are very strong, against capital punishment. Somebody wants to speak loud to prove and convince you that death penalty should stay. Somebody wants a show of hand. It is not such a petty matter which should be decided either by voice vote or show of hands. When we talk about India, let's go to the history. India was found with two kinds of slogans. One was Vande Mataram, and second I heard since my birth was Ahimsa Parmo Dharma. Now Dharma has many translations. One of them is law also. This is the Parmo Dharma, means this is the topmost law, that we should follow non-violence. Even if it's a murderer, even if it's a rare cases, I would advocate abolition of death penalty, and for the following reasons. Many of the people have spoken against abolition. They have talked about chaotic situation as a death penalty a solution for chaotic situation. I don't know how. Somebody referred to Nirbhaya case. Somebody said criminals get internal happiness. All that is totally untrue, probably. Coming to the problems with the provision of death penalty, if Miss Mani had Law Commission report, Justice Shah, very renowned justice, I hope the time is not applicable to me. It is? Okay. Justice Shah, what he has said is 95% of the death penalties have been overturned in Supreme Court. It means those people, poor people, gullible people who could not afford, that kind of legal support, who have not been able to go to Supreme Court, would have been hanged. You want to have a law in the country which could have committed 95% to gallows. Gandhi said that let everybody, 95% criminal go scot-free, then hang one. So that probably is the best solution even now. Some of the speakers have said and proved that it is no more a deterrent. So why keep a provision which is not a deterrent, which is not serving its purpose? Let's abolish the death penalty. Thank you.
Thank you, Anilji. Could I request Kailash Vasudev ji to come and share his view, please? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Justice Sori. Nice to see you amongst us, away from the dais. Our participants have been telling you about supporting and not supporting the death penalty. There are aspects of the death penalty which are of some significance. We must draw a distinction between the justice process and the penalty which is imposed. A delayed justice process does not mean that a person should not be penalized. If you have that kind of a situation, you will never have a country or a system which will work. The working of the system is depending largely in these matters on the police. A corrupt policeman does not permit you to let a corrupt accused get away. If you look at the overall situation for death penalties, they imbibe in the Indian Penal Code, which has got 511 sections, only 11 kinds of crimes permit you to sentence a man to death. Murder, abetting the killing of a child, the sedition, actions against the state. As General Prakash would know, our good generals would know, and our members from the defense forces, Army, Navy Acts, all provide for death penalties. Mutinies, seditions, acts of terrorism are necessary indictments of a society which needs corrections. We have another aspect which now comes into this whole fold, terrorism. You cannot let a terrorist activity go away without due attrition. In the Punjab, Justice Sodi is a witness to it. He saw what police actions did in killing many innocent people, and he appeared for those people. The actions of the policemen in the Punjab post the Bhindrewala episode was possibly the most tragic bloods which took place in the country after the partition. He was one of the officers responsible for bringing a lot of policemen to book and also sending quite a few of them to the gallows. It was necessary. We have the odd situation today where you have a drug menace. Earlier, when the Narcotics Act was passed, there was no provision for a death penalty, but now it prescribes that a person who is caught for the second time dealing in drugs over a certain quantity can be given the gallows. I see no reason why we should respect the Rakshas and not pray for the Devtas. There's a distinction. In Hindu mythology over time, starting from the days of, should I say, even the famous Buddha who started as Siddhartha and took the way to enlightenment through the process of not saying much, excepting for saying that you should forgive all sorts of offenses. Even in Buddhism, there is no retribution which is not provided for those who have committed offenses. You are bound to do your penance. If you are going to have a criminal whom you are going to let off for serious crimes, I think we will be causing a lot of difficulties to all of us. Crimes against society need powerful deterrents. Death sentences is one of them. I personally am of the view that in the justice system, a death penalty is awarded to a person after a lot of debate, a lot of procedural laws are followed. Yes, there is a delay in the decision, but that does not mean that the death penalty should go. That is my view. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Vasudev. I know the audience would like to ask questions, but we are a bit short on time. So I'm going to request Justice Sodi to share his view and educate between the two debating teams. So, over to you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me over here. It has been most interesting to see both the points being raised so forcefully. And I must appreciate the manner in which the debate has gone about. It's all very well to say, do away with the death penalty or to retain the death penalty. But the core question really is the society today ready? Or are you so mature as to be able to handle your criminals in a manner which is called for in a more humane manner? Or are you ready to eliminate your prisoners who are incapable of or incorrigible you are required to now balance the two. You see, you have a crime rate that is increasing always, but that doesn't come down or go up because of the death penalty. That has got nothing to do with it. But each and every crime, death penalty or any other penalty for that matter, depends upon the nature of the crime that has been committed. It is not a blanket death penalty is given to everybody because he commits two crimes, or one, or three, or four. That doesn't matter. But it is the nature of which we all are shocked, or it's abhorrent. That is when the society as a whole rises to the cause and says, this man is no longer fit to be part of us, and we must do away with him. That is when you justify the death sentence. On the other hand, the argument is that it is irreversible. You know, man can make mistakes. So do judges make mistakes. Now, a mistake made to the extent that you have taken away his life is a very, very fatal mistake. Now, can you continue to have a situation where a mistake can be made and the life taken away? So here is where you have to balance the two. Now, I must tell you, I myself have, when I was in position to do so, imposed death penalties. But and I now look back sometime, sit back and see whether I made a mistake. Did I do the correct thing? Because this is what after all you reflect in your life later on. Did you do it correctly? Was it right or wrong? Now, I'll tell you one case. I still don't know whether I did the right thing over there. A person took a bus from Lal Killa, and by the time he reached his destination, which was the bus stop, the international the bus stop, ISBT, what he did was he placed a packet under his seat and got off in the middle. Now a co-passenger told him, "Bhai sahab, aapka wo reh gaya." Now he said, "No, mera nahi hai ji, wo pehle se pada tha," and walked off. This thing exploded. 13 people died, and some were injured, in which there were children, there were women, absolutely innocent people. There was nothing this man had against them, but it was an act which was absolutely barbaric in itself. You can fight over something. You may kill somebody because of rage or anger, but not random killing. It's unacceptable. And I thought it was a rarest of the rare case. This man has done certainly more than he deserved, and I sentenced him to death. Then came the question. Now I think over it and say, maybe it wasn't his packet really. Maybe he was right. Somebody else had left it. But the evidence that came before us was that it was he who left it, because the conductor said he took the packet and somebody else saw it and all that. But it happened. So this is one case. Then there was another one in which a person came from Pakistan. He stayed in India, and they formed various rings. One of them, or two of them, went to the Lal Killa, where the soldiers, it's ceremonially they were there. He at random shot four of them or five of them, killed them, and ran away. Now ultimately it came out that yes, they caught him, and we found that this was an act. And then the question is, can you justify killing at random, or killing for the sake of killing? You know, it's slaughter. If a slaughter is justified to say that, all right, I will reform him, I will keep him in my prison for the rest of his life, reform him, and then do what? After that, he's already 80 years old or 90 years old. What reformation are you going to give him now? But at the same time, if even at 80 he can be reformed, why not? On the other hand, this barbarian who has actually caused a murder or a slaughter of this nature, does he deserve any mercy? Do you really want him to be a part of your society? Therefore, he is best got rid of. And therefore, you maintain it. Now, justification for keeping the death penalty is because it is rarest of the rare. Namely, each case must depend upon its own facts and circumstances. It must be so abhorrent and so outrageous that you revolt. As a society, you revolt against it. It is not solely judge-centric. Also, although yes, it can be said to be that. But then look at the filtration process. It goes from one court, second court, compulsorily, and then third court, and then you have so many curative petitions, review petitions, then finally the president comes into play, where it is only mercy, nothing to do with the law part of the whole thing. Look at the process that has gone through. Surely mistakes are minimal over here, but at the same time, there can be a mistake. So here, I leave it to your judgment now. It's either way. You decide ultimately what you feel best, and once you are ready, and actually ready, Parliament will pass the law. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
So the dilemma still continues. We are still not certain whether it should be abolished or not abolished. I mean, listening to Justice Sodhi, we would have thought that there would be some clarity on the matter, but I think we can't really decide, since he himself is, like, after giving a verdict, still in double minds about this.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed this evening. The whole purpose of incorporating such events into our celebrations is to provide you with varieties of types of entertainment. Music alone is not entertainment. Dance alone is not entertainment. Eating food is not alone entertainment. Therefore, we have incorporated these issues, which are quite interesting, and the number of people who've attending these functions, and there's a lot of enthusiasm from amongst the spectators, including our former presidents, to participate, shows that these events are appreciated. And thank you very much for giving us this encouragement to do these things as we get along. You know, we have a very vibrant book club here, which is run by Mrs. Padma Chib, and we want to graduate that book club into more such activities. Of course, today being the part of a Silver Jubilee celebration, we've got this kind of an elaborate tea and lights and systems. But we are going to do these activities as we get along throughout the year. And therefore, please participate with us. We love to interact. We love to do these things so that people in Vasant Vihar begin to enjoy more of what's happening here. But I cannot resist, and I have the authority to do that. While many of the speakers said about 136 countries and have abolished and all the rest of it, but all of them seem to have forgotten, and Justice Sodhi will please forgive me, when 60% of the world's population today, irrespective of which country they belong to, are subjected to capital punishment. Maybe 36 countries, but 60% of the world's population today is subjected to capital punishment, or is under the law of capital punishment. And I think Kailash mentioned about the Army Act. There's a very strong Army Act called Army Act Section 34. And if any crime is committed under Army Act Section 34, it is punishable by death by a sentence to be passed by a general court-martial. It can be reviewed by higher courts, but the general court-martial is per law authorized to pass a death sentence. And the only difference between the death sentence is passed by the civil court and the military court is that in the civil court it has to be by hanging, and in the military court it can be by hanging or by shooting. And you have just seen about a week ago, 27 people were beheaded, barbaric. Permit me to say barbaric, in Saudi Arabia for those people who showed negligence in the Hajj activity of where a lot of people were killed. 27 people who were responsible for that were beheaded. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go into that debate any longer. But Justice Sodhi, please, thank you very much for being here. May I request all of you to give this panel and Justice Sodhi a big hand. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, we are very lucky to have this evening our 3 former presidents here. It's not fair for me, but I think I will ask them, are they, which side of this debate they are. Minister Vinod Bansalji, which side of the debate are you are?
I think the capital punishment has to be continued.
Please come on stage, sir. Please come on stage, sir. Do us the honor of giving these gifts to those who spoke in your favor. Okay.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not only deterrent. I think the fear plays a more important role. So the factor of fear has to be there. I quote a simple case. You take the case of drunken driving. You catch someone driving drunk, he could kill people, and you put any amount of fine on him is not a deterrent. But the moment the fear is there that he is going to be put behind the bars even for a day, ladies and gentlemen, he will not do it. Thank you.
To your team, sir. There is space here. To your team, sir, yeah. I have another president here, former president in Air Marshal Siddiqui. May I request you to come, sir? I do not know which side of the thing, but you have no option but to go for the other side's view now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful to the President for giving us a chance to speak. In our country, where there's so much of, there's no governance. You take anywhere, whether it is Punjab, whether it is other state, there's no governance. If you do away with this, what you call the death penalty, there's no fear. So death penalty should stay till the time it is people reform.
Thank you very much, sir. Even though you may please honor your friends over here. You know, normally in a debate you decide, thank you very much, sir. In a debate you decide which side won, but today it seems that both sides are winners. So thank you very much to all of you. And we have amongst us the senior most former president here this evening, sir. Mr. Kapoor, who's from the Indian Police Service. May I request him to please come up on stage and honor Justice Sodhi by giving him a memento from our side. 1 minute, sir.
Limitation of 1 minute. On request, 3 minutes.
No, sir.
Then in 1 minute, I can say that I am against the motion. Having served as police, IG police for 33 years, and also Inspector General of Prisons for quite a long time, on the basis of my experience, I can say that what we need today in this country and perhaps all over the world is that the capital punishment cannot be abolished. Give me one instance of my personal experience about this. 2 minutes. The first case that I confronted as DSP in 51 in Rohtak, 10 days after I had joined, a murder took place in the suburbs of Rohtak. My boss sent me there, you go and report to me. I went there, the case was that a person killed a person who was after his sister. He shot him dead with his licensed gun. When I went there, the whole village was there. The man was there along with his rifle, the dead body. I asked him, and these facts, I gave him shabash. I had no experience of police at that time. I gave him shabash saying, you have done nothing wrong. If I had been in your place, I would have killed him. Nothing will happen to you. Within 40 minutes of this, I came back to my boss. This part now that I am now repeating in 2 minutes is interesting. My boss, an old man, I was only 25 years. He says, आपने ये वहाँ पे कह दिया in presence of the persons कि कुछ नहीं होगा इसको. मैंने कहा सर मैंने कह दिया, उसको शाबाश भी दिया. Now look at his approach. He says, if a gazetted officer has given a word to the people that nothing will happen to you, I will see that nothing will happen to him. Of course, I had a good scolding. The case was taken from me. It was 10 days after I joined the service. Now, interesting is that after 2 months, the same boss calls me in his office. वो कहता है कि कपूर आपकी जो बेवकूफ़ी थी वो तो हमें बहुत सूट कर गई. वो क्यों सुनिए, दैट्स पर्टिकुलर. वो कहता है कि सारे बदमाश रोहतक के जो हैं वो दूसरे घर में दूसरे गांव जिले में चले गए. वो कहते हैं कि यंग ऑफिसर आ गया है. वो कहता है कि खुल्लम खुल्ला किसी को गोल मारो उसका बाल बीका नहीं होगा. So this fear of this is not to be. Justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this function. We've enjoyed doing it for you. And I request you to give a big clap, particularly to the young people who have participated in this event. Thank you very much for coming here. We expect more younger people to participate in our activities, and this is why they are going to spearhead this movement. Thank you very much once again. The youngsters are very good. Please.